Comedian Bill Burr's latest comments on the California wildfires have caused a bit of a stir online.
Here he is on Jimmy Kimmel.
Good to see you. I heard you had to evacuate your home.
Yes. Like most people, I had to. I got lucky, the winds moved, but, the fire was coming and all that stuff. So I feel lucky.
Are you guys back in?
And I think everybody did a great job.
Yeah.
Unlike the internet,
Yeah, right. I know. It's right.
Oh, my God. All of these fire experts. Why didn't you just fly a helicopter into the ocean and then just, I don't know, because there was 100-knot winds? You want to do that? You want to do that at night, you lunatic? Mismanaged, like some idiot on the internet knows how to manage the worst fire in LA, sitting there in his underwear. You know what? Looking at the footage on the internet, I have determined that this here was mismanaged.
Comedian Theo Vaughn took to X and wrote, "Bill Burr, ladies and gentlemen, the best." Podcaster Victor Shee said, "This is why comedy is so effective at the moment. It exposes how ridiculous and ludicrous some of what they're saying is."
Some others didn't show as much praise. Podcaster Tim Pool wrote, "Empty reservoirs, failure to build the reservoirs voted on 10 years ago, insufficient staffing, budget cuts, failure to manage brush and forest floor despite warning every year for the last 10, 1 week advance warning on fires, 45-minute delays to dispatch LAFD, dispatch crew underserved, and we don't call out all the errors in management. It will happen again." Comedian Sam Tripoli had a bit more of a nuanced take, writing in part, "Man, I absolutely love Bill Burr. Been a huge fan for over 20 years. It's been a blessing to watch him evolve, seeing him work out new material. It's like getting a masterclass in comedy, but I have to say, his take on people doing their own research about the management of the LA fires is exactly like his take on COVID and masks, which, let's be honest, he got completely wrong. This kind of stance risks alienating his blue-collar, hardworking fan base." I think that's actually very well said, and I would associate myself with those comments. I, too, think Bill Burr is generally hilarious. He's very funny. I think he's a great actor. I've loved him in on The Chappelle Show, on Breaking Bad. I even loved him on The Mandalorian. He had a little role in 2 episodes of the Star Wars show. He's great, he's insightful, and it's fine if I don't always agree with him. I don't think comedy should always have to be appealing to me or be making political points I agree with. Certainly, it is fine to make fun of random people saying, why didn't they try to put out the fire that way? Yes, it is fair to people just spouting off on the internet don't have expertise on everything. Fine. But that's one danger. Another danger is just naively assuming that at all times the people in charge are doing a perfect job and everything is fine and going according to plan, because just because there's a press release from the fire department or the police department or the mayor's office saying we are all doing our best and it all went so satisfactorily great, you don't, it's a democracy. You don't have to live with that.
Well,
and we can criticize experts because experts, like that person points out relating to COVID, do get things wrong.
Well, we can also criticize, for example, a president-elect of the United States who puts out a completely fallacious claim that this is in some way related to smelt fish in a completely different part of the state and to water management in that respect. So the idea that I think that sometimes comes up on the populist right, that, whoa, you can't trust the experts, is very selectively applied often. Now, I do agree with Bill Burr. I also find him very funny in general, but one of my whole objections to the way the debate about the wildfires has been conducted is some of the best known claims about quote-unquote mismanagement have just been nonsense. So the smelt fish I've already mentioned. Mm-hmm. It's an issue related to a different part of the state that has no bearing on water levels. There is often cited this idea that there were cuts to the fire department. It is, in fact, debatable whether there were cuts at all, because
cuts to the budget.
There was some part of the budget where it was cut by about 2%, and then there was a separate provision made for pay raises, which people say ultimately made the budget slightly bigger. But the point is,
I'm used to liberals screaming about a 2% budget.
And I am used to conservatives saying government is too big. Why don't we cut it more vigorously?
Well, I'm your huckleberry.
Does anyone really, is the argument really that a 2% cut to the fire department's budget caused this problem in fighting wildfires? What happened is really very clear. The wildfires broke out with 99-mile-per-hour winds. in 99 mile per hour winds, you cannot put aircraft in the air, which is what Bill Burr was alluding
No, I
to.
agree with
to
that.
fight
That is
that.
very clear, yes.
And there is no effective way of fighting wildfires on a large scale from a fire hydrant system, because the demands on the water are simply too
I
great.
have not seen, I could be wrong, I have not seen a lot of people or people on the right saying that why aren't there more helicopters in the air? I have not seen that being made. Maybe it is being made.
But their argument is the hydrants ran dry. The hydrants ran dry after the demand for water from them was quadruple its usual level for 15 hours. Now, there has been enormous amounts of good reporting done on this by the LA Times and elsewhere, and people who are really expert in this area. And the argument is, well, if there are going to be heavy winds and wildfires, can we not do anything about it? And people who know a lot more about this than, frankly, either you or I or Bill Burr or Jimmy Kimmel say, well, you could, but to do that, you would need to spend an astronomical amount of money to build in enormous redundancy in the hydrant-based water supply in order to do it. So anyway, my basic point is there's just been a lot of demagoguery and misinformation in the criticisms of it, in my view.
I think there has been some. I don't disagree with that. I don't think it's demagoguery to criticize Karen Bass for not being there when she promised never to travel outside the country. I think criticism of her is perfectly well deserved.
But in what sense would it have, if she was sitting in LA rather than on a plane, how would that have changed the actual response to the fire?
It wouldn't. She's just the leader of the city and made a promise to be there. And also, there were warnings that this was coming. It was predicted not months in advance, but sometime in advance. So maybe she should have canceled her trip. That's a point that it's not just right-wing people who think that. Li Fong made that point. In terms of actually having better fire management, and you're right to say that I am not pretending to be an expert on this at all. People I know on sort of my side of the political spectrum, libertarian people, when it comes to the LA or just wildfires in California, I think tend to argue that there needs to be better forest management policies, controlled burns, those kinds of things. And for various reasons, those are difficult to do under existing law, and we need to have some updates to those procedures. But maybe I'll check in with those people and give you a more tangible response to.
Well, I mean, even in that regard, now there may, I mean, that point, I'm not 100% clear on whether that was a major contributory factor, but Newsom is often criticised for that, and Newsom has pointed out that the vast majority of forestry in the state of California is controlled by the federal government, not by the state of California. So look, that's a whole separate issue. The point
that is an issue. Actually, I think that is an important issue. The federal government just controls too much land in general that would be better, in my view, administered by the states. I mean, they own so much of,
everywhere.
Things of the west of where we live, and more of that. It would be good if the Interior Department turned that over to the states. I would be in favor of that.
A point of agreement.
All right, that does it for us today on Rising. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. For those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. I will see you next week. Niall will see you back here tomorrow.
I will be back
with
tomorrow.
Amber.
Yep.
Have a good one.